guys, I'm Laura.
I'm Liang.
And today we're really happy to sit with Jessica Liang. She graduated from Michigan Ross this year and she's now doing a search fund currently based in SF. Now I'm gonna give the mat to her and her introduce herself.
Thanks so much, Nora and Lynn, for having me. It's super exciting that you guys are starting this podcast. A little bit about me. So I'm originally from the San Francisco Bay Area, but since going off to college, I've been on a grand tour of what feels like all the coldest cities in the United States. So I did my undergrad at Yale, where I studied political science and education studies, and then post-undergrad moved out to Buffalo, New York to work at M&T Bank. I joined as part of their management development program and started off in their anti-money laundering compliance division before switching over and doing a little bit more project management within their credit division. And I guess there wasn't enough snow for me in Buffalo because then I came to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor for grad school. And I just graduated a couple months ago with my MBA and Master of Public Policy dual degree. And so I'm really excited to have moved back to sunny California. So I'm based again in the Bay Area, raised my fund, closed right after graduation, and now I'm officially just 2 weeks into my search. So we're very early.
That's impressive. Yeah, so you just mentioned you graduated from Ross with a dual degree in political science this year. So I wonder, could you talk a little bit more about your experience in Ross? How does that help you to move to the current stage and doing the search fund?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm forever grateful to Ross and to the Ford School and just the University of Michigan in general. I think coming here for grad school was an excellent decision. And I knew applying to grad schools that I wanted a dual degree. And so Michigan is great because every single graduate program here on campus is a top 10 program. So you know if you're walking around and you bump into an engineer, top 10 engineer. If you bump into a law school student, top 10 attorney. If you bump into a med school, they're gonna be the best doctors one day.
Yeah.
And coming to Michigan and enrolling in the MBA and MPP program really opened my eyes as to what exactly is out there. Like, I wouldn't have known about search funds or this path of entrepreneurship through acquisition or ETA at all if it weren't for the business school specifically, but grad school overall. And this is because search funds, it's a model that was created in the 1980s at Harvard and Stanford, and so they kind of knew about it for a long while, and it didn't proliferate to other schools until recently. So super glad I got here when I did and was able to take a sneak peek into that world.
Yeah, that's awesome. Remember, I firstly heard about search fund in my sophomore year. When I was looking into the Stanford GSP program, I found a lot of MBA students sat to school after they finished their MBA program and started a search fund. It's perfect transition. So I know that you got a full scholarship coming to Ross, and you also had a fantastic experience in Ross. You shared on your LinkedIn post that you started the Entrepreneurship through Acquisition Club here, and you were selected as the Ross President Club of the Year. So I'm really proud of you. I wonder if you can share more about the club that you started and how are you being selected as that role?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm really jealous that you already learned about search funds in your sophomore year of undergrad. So here's the thing, most people don't learn about search funds until they're well into their second year of the MBA, and oftentimes that's too late to really get into the field because by the time you're a second year MBA, you've already had a summer internship in another field or in another company, and you don't have the opportunity to really try it out before diving in. And diving into entrepreneurship before you get that starting testing opportunity is really tough. And so that was the whole premise of founding the ETA Club at Ross, was the idea that we would motivate and educate students and create awareness about this path, this alternative path to entrepreneurship. So I think when people think of entrepreneurship, one of the first things that comes to mind is, well, I'm going to create a startup, right? So I like to say not all of us are super creative. I can't really make the baby, but I can go adopt the teenager that already exists. And so with the idea of creating the ETA Club, we invited 14 of the biggest search investor firms to campus to host fireside chats and to host coffee chats with their students so that they could just learn about what is ETA and what are the different steps from fundraising to figuring out, okay, what industries do I want to get into to what does life look like as a search entrepreneur? And in doing that, we're allowing our MBA 1 students, the first year students, this opportunity to learn about it so that if they are interested in pursuing an internship in this space, they already have some connections with the big firms and can test the waters before they jump right in after school. And we got really lucky, so in my first year we also hosted the inaugural Ross ETA conference, and that went really, really well. We had 100 attendees in the first year, so very well attended for our first year, and we got raving reviews about how well it was run, so that made me feel really good. I was like, okay, I can die now in peace.
That's definitely a big accomplishment in Ross, and I can say that I totally share the same mindset as you. After like a year, I came to Michigan. I realized I'm really interested in entrepreneurship and started my own company, but I feel like it's too early for me to start a business at that time, and I kind of made this same decision as you. So I also started a club, Mission Venture Club, and we host different events, invite entrepreneurs, investors to come to talk to students and help students recruit for jobs. So yeah, I'm totally impressed by your experience of that club. And I wonder in the future what's the plan for that club since you graduated, and will there be more resources also for the undergraduate to explore?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say it's never too early to go start your business. If you have an idea, go for it. But I'm also so glad that you started a club, because it really can be a nice transition phase it's like a good way to test the waters without fully jumping in, right? And while you still get to be exposed to all the players and the community in the space, so that's awesome for you. And in terms of, what was the question again?
The future plans.
The future plans for the club. Okay, I'm so excited because when Kyle, my co-founder, and I rolled off, we had a really strong group of 4 MBA 1 students who really wanted to be a part of the leadership team. And so over the summer, we communicated a lot. They were already starting to plan for their curriculum this year, and they're already planning for the conference, which is upcoming in January. So we already have a save the date out there, and I'm really excited to see all that they've done so far. One of the things I know that they've built on that we didn't do last year is that they're actually taking a group of Ross MBA students and bringing them to the Chicago booth and Kellogg MBA ETA conference so that they can get exposed to the ecosystems of the other schools.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think moving forward, we can dive a little bit more into your current position.
Sure.
The search fund that you just did and the process of raising the capital after you graduate. And I'll give this to Liang.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so actually I'm not that familiar with search fund, and I believe a lot of students also do not know this concept. Do you want to explain to our audience what exactly is a search fund?
Yeah, absolutely. So a search fund is an alternative path to entrepreneurship. So the concept is called ETA, entrepreneurship through acquisition. So you're not necessarily creating a startup from scratch, but what you're doing instead is you're going out and you're buying an existing business. And this is, I think, going to become an increasingly more and more important method and model of entrepreneurship, because if you think about the trends that are going to be happening in the future, we are going to be seeing a silver tsunami of baby boomers who are retiring, and a lot of them have created their own businesses. And if you think about it, 99.9% of American companies are all small businesses. And so if there is a business owner who's retiring and maybe their kids don't want to get into the business and they don't have business successors, they essentially just have to shut down their business. And so for every company that we lose, that's a huge hit to the lifeblood of our country. And so I think it's really important for talented young people to step up to the plate and to put their talents where what the world needs intersect. And a lot of that is, well, you have a lot of young MBA graduates who are competent and skilled in management. They can totally run a small business. And so I think that's going to be a really attractive draw for people, because it's a good way for young, ambitious people to get into the CEO role very quickly while saving an existing business and in preserving the original owner's legacy and growing the company.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. It's like you're providing a new path for those graduates.
Yeah.
But I'm very curious, what's the moment that you decided you want to do the search fund instead of going to a big company? What's that moment?
Yeah, and it's actually a moment that's been happening over the course of several years, and I will say I definitely actually did have to go to a big company before I realized it. So I first learned about search funds in my first year of graduate school. So in the MBA MPP dual degree program, I started in the public policy school. And I'd actually come in with an early internship offer from PIMCO, which is a fixed income manager. But then midway through my first school year, I saw an information session. It was titled Private Equity Firm Headquartered in San Mateo. And I thought, that's really weird. I don't know what private equity is. And I'm from the Bay Area, from the town right next to San Mateo. And I've never heard of a company being headquartered there because it's suburbia. So I thought, that's really weird, but I'm curious. So I hop into this information session, and it ended up being Anna Kappa Partners, which is one of the biggest search investor firms in the ETI space. And that was in that session where I got the whole lowdown of what is a search fund 101. And I remember my jaw dropping to the ground and just thinking, this is so cool. How has nobody ever told me about this before? So I ended up applying, of course. I got their internship, and that's when I said, hey, by the way, I actually already have another offer, but can you squeeze me in? And the team was so kind and accommodating. They let me have an early internship start date. So I ended up doing both internships that summer. Absolutely loved my time at Anna Kappa, learning all about search funds. But I just said, oh my gosh, I really want to do this. And then I talked myself out of it. My second year of grad school. My second year of grad school was the first year of the MBA. And so I thought, well, wouldn't it be a waste of business school to not take advantage of all the recruiting opportunities that exist on campus? I'm never going to have this many employers flocking to hire me again. Maybe I should get a normal job first and then be entrepreneurial later. And that's how I ended up at Goldman Sachs last summer. I was an intern in their private wealth management division, and it was a great experience. I learned a lot, but my biggest revelation over the summer was, man, I don't want to be a private wealth advisor. I want to be the client. How can I be the client? And you look at all the private wealth clients, and they're all CEOs, they're all owners of their own businesses. And that's when I said, okay, we got to do that. We got to do that. And so coming back in my third year of grad school, co-founding the ETA club, that was just sort of a natural progression. And when everything went really well, is basically riding high on that momentum. And I said, well, I can't not search now. I'm so deep into it. And so was really excited to do it. And when I went and fundraised after graduation, it was smooth sailing.
I totally believe that, and that's amazing to hear that you had experience working in the search fund, and then after you graduated, you started your own thing, and it went pretty well. I'm curious, like, do you have a team working on this, or you're a solo founder of this search fund? And also kind of a follow-up question from the previous one. After you acquired a firm, you said that MBA students who have the working experience are qualified enough to manage that firm, but I'm also curious, like, how do you do that exactly?
Yeah, so I am doing a solo search, as it's called. Some people do a partnered search where they have a business partner and you have two people searching for a company. But right now it's just me, and hopefully some interns along the way. So if you have any friends, let me know. It's just me, and the model really is my investors, they provide the capital and I provide the blood, sweat, and tears in searching for a business. And then once we acquire it, they help me. My investors really act as a sounding board and guiding light for me, because they are very seasoned entrepreneurs who often themselves already done the search multiple times. So they know exactly what they're doing. And so to have them be my guiding light to help me through the whole transaction process is going to be really helpful. And then once I acquire the business, then I would become CEO. So then I would become the owner and the operator.
I'm curious, do you have any focus sector? Like, like generative AI is so popular right now. Do you have any interested one?
Yeah, so the funny thing about search is, I know AI is really hot right now, but the thing about search is you're often looking in these very unsexy, old school industries, but that are very good businesses that have been running for a long time. So you'll see a lot of people acquire plumbing firms, landscaping firm, HVAC. You see people in the healthcare field that will acquire med spas, things that have been in existence for a while. And really the main criteria is you generally want B2B services with recurring revenue, low capital expenditures, and in an industry that's growing and with tailwinds. So everybody will have a different industry. I would love to find something in education personally, but that often changes over time too. I've heard of searchers who've switched industries 10 different times during their search. And a lot of that has to do with just what's available on the market at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that you work in Sachs for their wealth management team, and from there you knew like a lot of rich people and the CEOs of the company. I guess that must be helpful for you to search the company right now, but I'm also curious, do you have other deal flow channels that make you be aware of the companies that want to be acquired?
Yeah, I would say for my Goldman internship, it was less about the connections I made there that would be helpful, but a lot of the skills I honed in private wealth. So the same way private wealth advisors search for their high net worth clients is very much the same way I am going to be searching for a business. So in searching for a business, what you're going to do is essentially you have a subscription to a database of information. You often filter by size, sector, what you're looking for, and a lot of times it's just cold outreach to business owners. But what's also really helpful, and I did learn this from private wealth, is that often you can build relationships with intermediaries. Say you make friends with an attorney or an estate planner or a banker. A lot of times these players have insight into deal flow and pipelines, and they can often send you things that they see.
It's amazing, but I'm curious, during the process, do you encounter any difficulty or challenge? Do you want to share one thing that you feel like the most difficult?
Yeah, I'm luckily still very early in my process, but from talking to searchers who are farther along in their path, I know it does become very lonely over time. And so much of it, it's a lot of heartbreak along the way, because you'll find a company that you want, you'll get it under a letter of intent or LOI, and then deals fall apart sometimes, right? Maybe the seller backs out, or you find out something about the company that, ooh, maybe I don't want to acquire this one, and then you back out. And then you sort of begin the search all over again. And so maintaining that resilience, that persistence, that sense of optimism that, hey, even though this one didn't work out, I'm going to find another one, is, I think, really the biggest mental challenge.
Yeah, I guess like with all those experiences that you have in the past few years, graduating from the top MBA program, working in different IB firms and banking, I wonder, except for that, what is the most important skill that you think of doing a search fund alone, or like go out to raise the capital?
I think a lot of it is to not is a little bit of fearlessness, because there's actually no way to prepare for entrepreneurship, and any entrepreneur will tell you this, that oftentimes you can't really prepare for it. Sure, you can gain some skills, like it's nice to learn modeling from banking, it's nice to learn how to evaluate an industry from consulting, but you don't actually know how to do it until you just dive right in and start doing it, and it's a lot of learning on the job. And so for people who are interested in this field, I would definitely say go talk to as many searchers as you can, figure out what their day-to-day life is like, because it's not always glamorous. It's glamorous when you get to the end and you acquire a company and you're CEO, but what does that in between look like? And are you going to be happy doing that? Are you going to have the stamina to withstand that? And then not being afraid to take that leap once you are sure that this is something that you want to do.
That's awesome. Thanks for offering that advice. And I think the last part is we wanted to hear about your advice for the current students who might be interested in doing search funds or working in a search fund. What kind of resources on campus and off campus that you would say will be helpful to them?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of on campus, obviously there's the Ross ETA Club that now exists, and it is led by such passionate groups of students and a wonderful professor. They're really bringing in a ton of really important players in this space. So getting to join the club, meeting people through that, I think is the most valuable thing you can do. Ross has also had one ETA class over the last decade or so, and the professor, Dave Heemstra, is absolutely fantastic. He's so dedicated to students, like really, and he's so passionate about this space as well. He actually lives in Philadelphia and flies in once a week to teach students. So that just goes to show how much he adores his students and is willing to educate us on this space. So that's a great place to start. If you want to do a little bit of reading on your own, what some people call the Bible of ETA is Stanford University has a Stanford Search Fund Primer that's available on the internet for anybody to read, and that's a great starting point.
Yeah, the last one should be to seek some general advice, because you were also students like us. And do you have any kind of life lesson for us when you're in our shoes?
Absolutely. And I think the biggest one is to not be afraid to take the unconventional path. I think a lot of times top students at top schools, it's really easy to get into this mindset of, oh, I have to go achieve that shiny thing that everybody else wants. And I think it's so important to take a pause and to ask yourself, but what do I want? Where would I excel? And that might not be where your friends would excel, and being unafraid to go take that path, even if it is a little lonely. I think about oftentimes too, like my decision to move to Buffalo after undergrad, for example. No one moves to Buffalo after undergrad. Nobody moves to Buffalo, period. But moving there allowed me so many opportunities that I wouldn't have gotten if I were in Midtown Manhattan, because there are a million other people like me. It allowed me to accelerate my professional career very quickly. It allowed me to become a homeowner and a landlord at age 23. It allowed me to join a social club in Buffalo. So I hung out with a lot of people in their 60s and 70s who were like the big wigs of the city. And it allowed me to join the board of directors for 2 local nonprofits in my early 20s, which I was totally not qualified for. But moving to a place like that, an unexpected place like that, opened up so many doors of possibilities for me. And in the same way, in grad school, everybody's trying to go for those same, top industries. Everybody wants to work in banking, consulting, tech. And a lot of people have never heard of search funds before. And so I know my parents thought I was a little crazy when I said, hey, I'm going to go do this thing. And it's really turned out even so early on, to be a really rewarding path, particularly because it is very unstructured. It is, whether I succeed or I fail is very much in my own hands at this point. And so when I look at my calendar and it's blank, I have to figure out, okay, what do I have to do on the day-to-day to make sure I eventually get to this goal that I have over here. And it's very liberating to be self-driven, and it's also a little scary, but I'm finding it very fulfilling and rewarding, and I really hope more young students open themselves up to this opportunity and really consider it.
Yeah, totally appreciate that, and I think that totally makes sense to me because I share the same values. I remember I read a book from Peter Thiel, The 0 to 1, like in the first few chapters he mentioned in most of the cases people like to stand in the line where most people stand, but a lot of times you didn't realize that there is actually a door just open for you in the corner. You just have to go and find it. So that's amazing. I'm so glad that you shared that advice with us. I guess let's move to the last part of our episode for today. And this is something we always do in each episode. So we're gonna ask you 3 questions without giving a thought. You gotta give the answer.
So first is, what's your favorite place in Michigan? Umich.
Oh my gosh, my favorite place is very specific, but it's that little pathway through the law school quad between, I guess, the beginning of it and that school building to Ross. It's just a beautiful path to walk on, and when I was a student here, I'd run through
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I enjoy walking on that road. What's your favorite class in Ross, especially when you're in MBA?
Oh my gosh, I'm so biased, but the ETA class by far. The ETA class, and there's also a class, we call it CEOs. I can't remember what the official name was. I think it was like leading organizations through change. I'm definitely butchering it. I don't know what it is, but it's taught by Professor Mike Barger, and you basically come into every class and you get to simulate being a CEO of an existing company in crisis. So my team, for example, we were the JetBlue team going through a crisis when a ton of their planes were grounded over a winter storm, and you had so many unhappy customers who were stranded at airports for 24 hours. And so that was a really great way to put myself in the shoes of a CEO in a crisis. I was really asking myself, do I want to do this? Really good practice.
That's interesting. Last question, what's your favorite book or podcast? You can share either or.
Either or. Favorite book is Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. I think for somebody like me who often believes, okay, I control everything in my life, I have, say over everything, it's helpful to read about that and to see that, no, there are a lot of other factors sometimes at play that are out of your control that your success or failure can be attributed to. So really helpful for perspective. And in terms of podcast, I really like The Best One Yet. It used to be called Robin Hood Snacks, and it was actually founded by, one of the co-founders is a Michigan MBA MVP dual degree student alum as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're in the same shoes. I think that's all for today.
Yeah, thank you so much for
Thank you for having me. It was great chatting
Thanks so
with you
much for
guys.
being here.
Yay!